Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the county of Haliburton is located on the Treaty 20 Michi-Saugig territory and in the traditional territory of the Michi-Saugig and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Dayo?
Thank you, Warden. It's not a matter of pecuniary interest, but I will step out of the room during the HHLT delegation due to my affiliation with the organization.
We're just going to get a form here. Thank you. Yep. Approval of the agenda as amended. We're just we kind of changed things around a little bit. I'm going to get Gary to read the resolutions out, and then I'll ask for
that the February 2025 Haliburton County Council agenda be approved as amended.
question, Bob.
Motion.
Okay, you can move. It's second by.
No, I want to make a motion before
Okay,
we
go
approve
ahead.
the agenda. Obviously, this whole thing with the land trust has taken on a life of its own over the last couple of weeks, I guess. The situation with what's being said on social media and the letters, which I'm sure all of us are getting, shows that there's an awful lot of interest in this subject, and also that that there's a lot of unknowns about all this. I understand in speaking to staff that staff has reached out to MNRF and Ministry of Environment to get answers, and those answers are not yet available to us. So particularly in light of the fact that we're in the middle of an election and that nothing really can happen on this item, I would like to defer this for 30, 45 days so that we can get all of the facts on the table before us, before we have a discussion. I feel what's happening is we're taking these various steps, but not having all of it put in front of us. I think this is obviously an important issue to a lot of people and to the county. And I would like to have a wholesome discussion with hearing all sides, particularly with a staff report to tell us what's going on. So I think it's premature for us to be having this on the agenda today.
Anyone else? Mary?
Not a resolution?
That was a motion, yes.
Okay. Second. I dig into the.
Oh, you might, Murray, if you would.
I spent almost all day yesterday reviewing options, and then I got to 2030 where it almost looked like the deal's been made already. They're saying that they manage it. I want to know who the manager is. There's 30 or 40 questions. I'm saying today we should hear them out, hear how they rebut what they've heard, which is fine. And I think their intentions are good, but I just don't know that they know what's going to happen who the manager is going to be, who comes after them. And they have certain rights that they can shut some of the things down that they say now they approve. So I'm quite prepared to adjourn it after we hear them and come back another time with the staff report and get this right. This is could be a huge impact on particularly Highlands East and Midland. So.
Councillor Carter, does that suit your thoughts?
Sure, I don't have a problem in hearing people out. I would rather it all happen at once, which would be better. And so I would prefer that it be deferred.
The delegation.
Yeah.
That's not quite what you were saying, Mary.
Can you agree to that?
Yeah, I agree with
So
that.
just for clarification, procedural clarification. So, to Councillor Carter's point, it's a motion to defer. We're moving everything until it would be, if I did my math correct, to be March 19th, council meeting. So that would be, so everything we, under motion defer, we don't deal with anything today. Councillor Fury's position, if I, again, Councillor Barron heard you correctly, to hear the people out, we'd be referring the matter to March, which means you can still do something today. So there's, the motions are technically a bit different. A deferral means we don't do anything with it today other than move on and let people know that, yes, we're coming back with it. The referral would allow the, at the minimum, the land trust people that are to speak today with no interaction with council other than just thank you for your information and take it for information going forward. So there's
Two things.
two things at play here.
I just want to hear from Councillor Jansen.
Sorry, again, this is being ultimately bureaucratic here. So if we're going to refer it, then we can have a discussion right now about the merits. If we're going to defer it, all you can talk about is time and place.
Yes.
We've asked them to come today. I know that they put a lot of information out there, you know, in the newspaper and sent out letters. But I think it's an opportunity for that information to, and accepting that there may be other information that's relative to any approvals that we might provide. I do believe that it's worthwhile to hear what they've got to say today. Acknowledging that we're going to have another discussion about it later on. I would prefer to hear them out today, given that we asked them to come.
All right. Councillor Rao.
I totally agree. Like, for instance, as was said earlier, both Minden Hills and Haliburton, Highlands East. And I would say right now, Highlands East, totally. I don't think in what's going on right now, there's anything in Highlands East is not covered by what's going to happen. And so at the end of the day, contrary a little bit to what we're saying, I'd like to ask a few questions, not so much on the legality of what's going to be done with it, with MNRF, but what is their intent? What do they want to do? And I'm hearing existing, current. I'm hearing no future in anything they're talking about. So I need to know, where are they lobbying? What direction are they pushing to go into? If we can get that information, then I think it would be a great basis for our staff to be able to investigate that further, to determine whether or not that is or is not an opportunity that could or could not occur. Because the last thing I want to do is put out another 2 weeks. We got a whole bunch more social media and who knows what spinning stuff. And at the end of the day, our answer is no comment. I have no interest in going in that direction.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, because if we don't let them speak, then it appears to the public that we're not interested in hearing them, or to them. But this could go either way, that the land trust will speak and say what their plans are, et cetera, and it'll either help the public to simmer down because they understand it better, or it'll just fire it up because they don't like what's said. So, I mean, I personally, I think I'd be willing to listen because it's been prepared for today. But I would agree with Murray that we actually don't necessarily ask questions or do anything, just take it as information, allow staff to hear the information as well, so that when they do get speaking to the MNRF and Ministry of Environment, that we can move forward. I believe you said March 19th, Gary. So I just think that there's probably a lot of people that are logged into this meeting right now too, that are listening, and it could go either way. We're either going to set the world on fire or people are going to simmer down.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Just so on that point, so what we can do, depending on where council wants to go, is we'll take in obviously the information being brought to us by the land trust. We've been collecting the information we've received online and from members of council, and then we would solicit questions from council, and then try to build them in, relay back and forth between both parties, both the neighbor, the citizens and the land trust, and that would give to Councillor Carter point a more fulsome report that we could provide to council going into the 19th, if that is agreeable.
Certainly, Lisa, go ahead.
Just one more question then. So I'm not, how much does the county actually have as far as input into this? I mean, I understand we can ask the questions and, you know, put some pressure on it, but considering it's like provincial, I mean, if we put this off till March 19th, is it possible they could just go ahead and do what they want to do anyway, and then it comes back to us as a done deal?
We are we're like everybody else, we're a commenting agency or commenting body into the process that I'm assuming we'd have significant weight with the province. Yes, it is a provincial approval and actually from a timing standpoint with the government, with the writ being dropped for the election and election not happening until the 28th, no action can be taken bureaucratically within the province until the new government's sworn in, including cabinet. And then you go through the process of, is there a shift in deputy ministers? So there is a lag period going in, probably I would say at least a month and a half before the government's actually up and running again. So, but there is some time. But having said all that, by March 19th, I'm assuming we would have some information back on some of the questions we have on, to Councillor Carter's point and Councillor Fury's point, the technical part of running things like, okay, how does this work? What do the agreements look like? How are restrictions governed? How is this managed? Those type of things would be better laid out for us.
Good point, Lisa. Liz?
If we're going to hear them, which it kind of sounds like we're willing to hear them out today, I mean, I agree with Councillor Royale that we should be able to ask questions for our own. If they're saying something we want clarification on, I think we should be allowed to ask a question if we wish. Again, I think it's important that they do speak. It will allay, as Councillor Shell said, some of the misinformation and calm the waters a little bit, accepting that we will need more information.
That really helped. Walt?
I just think it's really important that we speak for our constituents and they have a lot of concerns. So, I mean, when do we get to ask these questions? Like, there's a lot of people going to be watching this meeting today. And so, I mean, that's my 2 cents worth. Like, are we just going to put our head in the sand? And
No, and certainly not. That wasn't the point anywhere. We're trying to figure out a proper path to take. And I believe from where I'm sitting here, I would like to bring them in today at 11 o'clock, hear them. If a few questions, by all means, you're entitled to that. And then we'll get together again with council and staff and go from there.
thank you.
Anybody else? Cease?
I just want to repeat that at the end of the day, I need to know not so much the mechanics of how it's going to work. I mean, that administration, the overall who's who in the zoo and how it's going to function. That's not what I'm interested in. I want to know, what are they lobbying for? Are they lobbying for current status quo with no future expansion? Because that's what a lot of our people are worried about. Is it going to shut down anything that we're doing going forward? And the answer to that is, I don't know. And that's kind of sort of what I'm looking for, is more so because that's what people have been asking me. Where is it? Like, how is this going to impact me going down the road? Not how is it going to impact me today, but how is it going to impact me going down the road? And I need to know, because they need to know, what direction are they trying to go for? Not so much the actual mechanics of how it's going to be done.
Bob?
Yeah, look, the reasoning behind my notion was not to not be able to ask questions but I just get this feeling that what we're doing is we're doing this incremental. We're hearing one side and then a week later we hear another side. I wanted to have one fulsome discussion that included both sides, whether the other side, being the public, is coming through us or in a delegation of their own, and the land trust, and having the professional opinions of staff from the ministries. However, having said that, I'm willing to amend my motion that we that we hear them out today, and I don't really think we should be asking questions because we're not hearing both sides. But if we ask questions, that's fine. But we just do not discuss or have a resolution at the end of today without us having a more fulsome discussion in March.
Thank you. Councillor Danielson.
I think one of the values of allowing them to speak today is that the last session we had was enclosed, and this will allow, you know, an open discussion.
Have you got that? Mr. C.
Yeah, as usual, I don't,
Oh, Murray? Oh, sorry.
Well, the problem with having an open discussion is that we're not prepared. I doubt that any of you have done the research that I have done on this, and I'm not prepared. And I spent all day, half day yesterday, because it just goes from one area to another, and the designation allows certain things, which Councillor Ryle is right about, and it's fairly clear what you can do, but it doesn't mention things like trapping, what happens if the beaver swans, a beaver floods a pond, and that's where one of the ATV trails was. Does that get approved? It all depends on the managers. Conservation authorities manage them out of here. We don't have a conservation authority. So who's going to make these decisions? Those are questions that we can't ask today because we don't have the answers today.
Yeah.
So it's fine to hear them out, I think, but I'm kind of the mind that we're not ready to ask the questions. We can ask the simple ones that we see in social media, but there's a lot more to this than that, folks. I can tell you that.
Lisa, go ahead.
We have the motion just to read then that
Yeah.
council accepts it for information today and just leave it at that without asking questions on? Is that kind of the consensus? Well, we can vote on it, I suppose.
Councillor Danielson.
Sorry, but I still believe that if there's something. Apologies, but I still believe that if there's something that we need, if they say something we don't understand or we have a simple question that we want to ask, I think we should be able to ask a question. I accept and acknowledge that we will still have more questions that need to be answered from other parties. But I believe that, like, I don't like the idea of being silenced.
Muzzled.
Thank you.
That won't happen. Bob?
I object to those two words. I mean, it's not a matter of being silenced or muzzled. It's about being prepared.
Yeah.
As Councillor Ferry has eloquently stated, we are not prepared to have an open discussion here today. We can listen to what they have to say, but understand that as of before we get home today, there will be on social media 100 new questions. And without having staff being able to give us, the information that may answer some of the questions that Councillor Ferry has brought up, by getting the opinion of MNRF and the MOE, we really, I'm trying to, this is such an important issue that not only for now, but for the whole decade coming forward. And understand that council here has, basically said we will support this initiative in our decisions. And now all these questions come up. And, I'm, generally in my mind, I want to support it, but at the same time, I'm not willing to just accept a lot of these issues that have come up. So it's not a matter of being silenced. It's a matter of making an important decision and being prepared for it. And we are not prepared for it at this point. So let's hear them out. And anybody wants to ask questions, that's fine. But let us have in March a fulsome discussion with all of the facts on the table.
All right, I'm going to ask then, maybe for a show of hands, do we listen to them with no questions? Or listen to them with questions? So I'm going to ask that, and I would like a show of hands with no questions today. So there will be questions.
Okay, just to try to bring us all back together.
That's the kind of a day it's going to be.
Yeah, so
It's taken 20 minutes to get this far.
that's fine. So we just breeze through everything else. So I don't think we need, with respect, Counselor, I don't think we need the motion that's put on the floor. So if that motion can be withdrawn, and then we'll just have the motion to refer after we hear from, so we'll approve the agenda as amended. The interaction will happen when the land trust is here, of a motion to refer it to a meeting in, I screwed my dates up. It's either the 26th or the 12th of March, whatever council's happy with. If that works, Your Honor.
But
With a staff report.
Yeah, so everything else, so we'll take notes today. We've had conversations with them before. We'll have re-engage. We'll engage with the proponents or opponents, excuse me, that that have submitted stuff to the county and to the local municipalities. And take in some council questions. And we'll prepare a wholesome report for the meeting. And then the structure of the meeting we can talk about as we get closer to the date. So we'll commit to that, so.
Councillor Dennison.
I'm just gonna say that the date would likely depend on what, whether we've got the information we're seeking from the ministries.
Yes, I was gonna suggest the 26th, which is the second meeting in March.
Well, Bob, you've withdrawn your motion. Can you go ahead and go ahead.
This is back to the amended agenda, that the February 8th, 2025 Haliburton County Council agenda be approved as amended.
Move. Councillor Dennison, Councillor Rail. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Consent agenda?
That the items listed under the heading and consent agenda for February 12th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Someone move, Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Ferry. All in favor? It's carried. We're down to the consideration of reports.
That's me.
Gary.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as requested of council a couple months ago, there was a request for us to re-examine the remuneration rates for members of council. We've conducted that review, and one was done back in 2021 with under the previous council. That was done in 2021. That was partially adopted. They didn't fully adopt the recommendations of the previous council over the time period. So from a comparator standpoint, we've looked at the membership of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, which is, yes, there's a varying in size and that, but I mean, the type of work is quite similar. The type of service delivered are quite similar. And so when you look at the pay scales or the salary scales in those areas, and you take into account size, because City of Kawartha Lakes is part of that group too, and obviously they're a bit of an anomaly. And they also have some smaller ones that are smaller than us in there. So I looked at taking the median rate, which is the norm when doing the salary surveys, and coming with that, we landed in the bottom third below the median when looking at as identified in the charts in the report. And so my recommendations going forward, I do think it is important that the compensation recognize the work being done. I think it's interesting to note that by going with the median salary of the EOWC municipalities, it puts the county Haliburton at the 50th percentile of the counties, which is the same standard that council sets for our staff compensation. We sit at the 50th percentile of our comparators as well. So there's an equity piece in that as well. And so having said that, we're recommending for council's consideration the increase of the salaries for the warden, deputy warden, and councillor to the median rate of the EWC municipalities, which are identified in the report. We aren't recommending any changes to the per diems or the mileage rates because they seem to be on par with the majority of the municipalities involved. And lastly, we haven't budgeted for the increase in salary for 25. The recommendation is that they take effect January 1st, 2026. However, implementation date is purely at the purview of council, as with everything else brought in today. So I can take any specific questions, Your Honor, with respect as we go forward.
All right, thank you, Gary. Questions for Mary?
I just think that we should do it 2025. Should do it in 2025. because we did it the last time. It's always done just the year before the election. And I want people to know that, to have some planning. Like, come on, some of us are getting old here and we need to be replaced. And we need young people to replace us. And we're not seeing a whole lot of young people except Jennifer here and Lisa. Oh, Liz is pretty young, I know. But anyway, I think we need to move now. I don't see why we need to wait for a year. If you're doing the job, you should get the money.
So you would suggest January 2025?
Yeah.
Councillor Carter.
Just in looking over this, I'm sorry, I only sort of did some math this morning. There's 2 errors on this. And they get, I think one's a transcription error and the other one is kind of a math error. Sorry, but they're within a few $100s, but it's still that the numbers aren't quite accurate, I don't think.
What the median numbers in the report?
Yeah, first of all, we shouldn't be counting the existing Haliburton in there to calculate the median is one. So the warden one would be 57,934.59. The deputy warden is fine. And then I think the counselor should be 23,959.71.
Yeah, I mean, we can make adjustments, however, from a math perspective, if you take Haliburton out of the list, then the median shifts,
Well, yeah,
right? But we're part of the calculation. I mean,
yeah, but we're taking the old Haliburton in to calculate.
well, no, those are the 2025 Haliburton numbers.
Fine. Well, then your warden number still changes. It really should be, I think, the 57,159.18 as opposed to
Oh, okay.
519.18.
Oh, yes, sorry, yeah.
Councillor Anderson.
I agree completely with what Councillor Fury was saying. But given the fact that it's not something that we budgeted for this year, I mean, I have no doubt that we can probably find the money. But I remember saying at the last discussion that we had about this, that maybe to work it in half this year, half next year, so it's not quite as much of an impact on the budget, and we're still moving forward.
Just for reference, from a numerical standpoint, the impact of 50%, 100% would be very minor to the budget.
Okay.
It's a $40,000 piece. So
Well, then I concur with
Councillor
Councillor
Day.
Fury.
Very much appreciate the idea of going with the median. I think that's great. However, I would respectfully disagree that we started any earlier than the beginning of next term. I believe that our community is really experiencing hard financial times. And I know that everyone at this table knows that too and respects that too. But I think as community leaders, it's incumbent upon us to set the standard and say, we're not going to take a pay rise while folks are hurting this much. But the folks that replace us, that's another story. And I do fully agree that we need to get good people sitting around this table in lower tier, and salary is part of it. It's not an easy job. It's not a well understood job. There is a lot of hatred that comes our way, and people need to be compensated for their pains. But I think given the state of our community right now, we should defer for the next term.
Anyone else? Murray, go ahead.
I'm a resolution of effective January 1st, 2025 to the recommendations of the CAO. That's
You need a second.
Yep, a seconder. Councillor Carter.
That staff report, CAO 01/2025, county council compensation review be approved, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw for establishing the revised rates effective January 1st, 2025. Yes, sorry. That's my name. Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Corporate
Mr. Warden.
services,
I'd just like to add that we have $400,000 sitting in an account that we could take the 40,000 of it. It doesn't need to impact the budget, and the money's already there. I'm with I know what Jennifer's saying, but you know, you do it next year, the economy could be worse next year. So that's
If I may, just
Go
to
ahead.
Councillor Veer's point, yeah, we fully anticipate that extra, we can accommodate that through the course of the year going forward without any adjustments to the budget.
okay. We're down to finance investment report. Andrea?
Good morning, Warden and Council. We had a very successful year with our investments in 2024. As of December 31st, the county had 12.5 million invested. This was so high because I did move the majority of the December 15th levy payments into our high interest savings account for over the holidays. It has since been withdrawn over the month of January for cash flow purposes. Interest rates held pretty steady for the first half of 2024 at 5.465%, but we have seen a steady decline since June, with December's rate being 4.275 and January's further being 3.955. As of year end, the county has earned a total of just over 1.1 million in investment income to date. And of that, just over 511,000 was earned from 2024. This was an increase of 113,000 from 23.
All right, thank you. Questions? Councillor Carter?
Just to comment, I think this is terrific news. And I think the whole program has been very, very worthwhile for us in getting involved with one investment. And I know now they even have newer models to follow, but this really helps us in our budgets. And so, really good job.
Other questions, comments, resolution?
That staff report, COR 06/2025, investment report be received as information.
Could have someone move? Councillors Dayu and Danielson. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Andrew. Transportation, approval of purchase of a 2025 tandem axle plow truck. So
Morning, Warden, members of council. My first report is it's in regards to the purchase of the tandem axle plow truck. The county and Algonquin Highlands collaborated in the RFP in December and are for the procurement of one tandem plow truck for each municipality. The tender closed on January 12th with 2 proposals submitted. The bid prices for the proposals for the county were over the county budgeted amount. The proposals were evaluated, and Winslow Girolami Motors had the highest scoring proposal, meeting all requirements and being the lowest bid as well. To offset the cost, staff are recommending deferral of the 25 purchase of a hot box trailer to 26. Staff have reached out to the proponents in regards to the tariffs, and their reply was that at this point they did not know what the effects would be for in regards to tariffs and the purchase. So staff are recommending moving forward with the purchase of the tandem. Any questions?
any questions? Councillor Carter?
I guess, do you need the hot box trailer?
We can make it work for we can have it replaced next year. We can make it.
I guess the situation is, look, with 2 things. One, with all of this uncertainty, the tariffs are not an uncertainty. They are in effect right now. That is going to increase the price of all vehicles or anything that's made with steel or aluminum, and vehicles certainly are in that category. And the other thing is that, you know, the actions of the US are putting increased pressure on the Canadian dollar, which will also increase the costs. If we have it within our budget, and you need this trailer, I don't like us deferring something that we need. You know, particularly going into more uncertainty as opposed to less. I would think that if we need both of those items, we should proceed with both of them and figure it out.
Thank you. Sil, did you have a comment?
No, I
Okay, Councillor Royale?
Yeah, I think what Councillor Carter's saying is very real. The final product, is it coming out of Canada or the United States? Because if it's coming out of Canada, that's going to change the tariff rate. If it's coming out of the United States, then it'll be a whole lot different, because if we retaliate, then we're talking about major dollars. So do we know if the products are going to be made or assembled, or the final point of shipment would be in Canada?
the chassis and frame are from the States, but the dump body and plow equipment is from Canada, is a Canadian made.
Councillor Dempson?
I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Carter that we should probably go ahead and acquire both pieces, and, you know, because the prices are going to increase dramatically, so I think we should go ahead. I'd also like to say how pleased I am with Algonquin Highlands, who continue to partner with the county on a number of initiatives.
Great. Anyone else? Resolution?
That report, PWS 02/2025 be approved, and the bylaw be presented or authorized in the warden and clerk to execute. That report, PWS 02/2025 be approved, and then a bylaw be presented authorizing the warden and clerk to execute a purchase agreement with Winslow Bromley Motors.
For both?
No, everything's covered under the one resolution.
Bob, you look a bit confused.
I'm assuming, okay, sorry, my mistake.
Tandem trailer.
Yes, okay. Second here.
Hot box trailer.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Trust me, I will amend that motion. I just can't figure the wording out right now.
Could I have someone move? Councillor Carter, I think, and Councillor Shell. All in favor? It's carried.
Can I just offer one thing, Your Honor? On the tariff fee, so this still came to me. This is the first instance we've had where we're starting to run into what the changes. So we've been working with the UWC, has done some work, as well as AMO's done a lot of work on adjusting things with respect to how it's going to impact municipalities going forward. And also one of the other there's, as well as the federal government and provincial government, are looking at indemnifying municipalities under procurement laws, as we try to avoid, we try to get into more geographical restrictions on what we buy. So there will be possibly some modifications to our procurement procedures going forward. So as hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have enough things together. We'll bring a full report back to council identifying how we anticipate the tariffs will impact other budget from a monetary standpoint, but also from a procedural standpoint as well.
Facilities, Land Registry Office. So,
This report is in regards to the, actually, it's just presenting the floor plans for the LRO administration building renovation project. They're on the screen right now. So essentially, the the project is to improve and provide accessible, safe, efficient, and functional spaces to meet all regulations, AODA, building codes, and fire codes, as county and staff workspaces and access to the public. The county and the consultant are collaboratively preparing the contract documents and procurement documents. That includes the contract drawings, finishes and equipment, the specifications, schedule, and the tender documents themselves. The renovations are in 3 phases. The first phase is the procurement approval phase. And essentially the phases we're anticipating will follow the following timelines. So the RFT posting will be March 28th, the closing April 22nd, and council approval May 14th. Phase 2 will be the construction phase with the anticipated start date of May 22nd with substantial completion by September 26th. And then the third phase would be the final inspection and the completion, final completion of documentation, which is anticipated for October 10th. Staff will work with the consultant and the contractor to minimize disruption to council and staff that are working at 11 Newcastle Street, which is this building, through the construction phases of each floor. The RFP, so the next steps are in progress right now. They're preparing permits and construction drawings, finalizing the finishes, equipment, furniture, etc., and finalizing the procurement document for the process, and as well as acquiring the appropriate permits. The RFT will be coming to council for approval, and the scope of work will reflect the allocated budget moving forward. That will be brought to council.
Gary?
Just if I could add to, just for council information, Blake, if we can scroll down into the drawings for this building here. So one of the issues we have going forward with the changes, as we've mentioned with council before, is we have a number of issues regarding the accessibility of this building. As you can appreciate, the stairwell, the lift, and we are running out of space, and we have very limited meeting room space in the building. The renovations will include so downstairs will be new meeting spaces and sufficiently set up with access point. They can actually now they can be used by members of the community as well if there's community groups that want to need meeting space that we currently don't have now. So you primarily have those departments move upstairs and they'd occupy the space we're sitting in now. And then it would be a renovation of the front entrance area as well, fully accessible at front of the building, which it currently is not. As well as the interior of the building for the reception area as well. The washrooms would become actually accessible washrooms because we are non-compliant on the accessibility piece of the washrooms we have in the building as well. So, and it creates additional space for us for the future in the space. Currently be meeting room space, but can be adopted going forward, and as well going across with the renovations into the the land registry building. Is you're looking now at a fully accessible building with level grade accesses for both public members and council. There to be an upgraded lift system into the building for accessibility, and fully modernized with respect to the IT services and that within the thing, and a much better public space will be able to accommodate more members of the public where they won't be, as we said now, where they're staring at somebody's back when they're giving a presentation. So it'll be set up more as a modern piece. And as Mr. Cloutier mentioned, working with the consultant, that we are quite confident that we will be able to bring it all in with the budget approved amount that we represented back in January.
Just going to ask Phil, so are you finished with your report?
Yep. No, Mr. Dyke, just basically.
Councillor Dale.
Thanks very much. This is really exciting. I have a question about what might appear to be a very minor piece of this puzzle, but I think it isn't quite as minor as one might expect. And that has to do with the interior visuals of the council chambers. I think that how a room is presented and color choice and furniture, window furnishings, and I appreciate these are minor details given a big project that has been underway for a long time and costs us quite a bit of money. But how the council chamber looks is quite important to suggest how people are welcome in that space, how they're represented in that space, how it shows that we have pride in our community, how it shows that we have pride in our culture, in where we're going. And so my question is simply for the council chambers themselves, what is the process for deciding on how the space will look? And if I might just follow that by saying, I'm not suggesting we spend more money on it. It's about how do we use the money that's already allocated in order to create the space that the community knows belongs to them and they're very, very welcome in.
Well, we have, Mr. Dyke and I have met with our consultant in regards to those discussions, in regards to finishes, paint colors, and we're anticipating that they will reflect the county colors that you see as you drive through the county. So some greens, a little bit of gray to reflect the rocks and whatnot. We'll also have, if you want to call it artwork that will reflect past and present in regards to the county as a whole. So we are incorporating, we're trying to put as much of a local flair to the council chamber as possible.
Councillor Dennison.
Just to that point, and Syl's point about artwork, I wonder if there is, because it's lovely to see, historic photography or whatever, but I also wonder if there isn't some opportunity for us to partner with, say, the Arts Council, that we could have local artwork. I know that there might be insurance issues associated with that, but I would like to investigate, because I'm quite sure that local artists would love to display their work, and it would be all adding to the idea of community and participation. Just something to think about.
Gary, then Maria.
Yeah, further to that point, so that is part of the process we're going through, is how that piece is being built, is being accommodated budget, but also how that's curated would be involved just that, the local community, the local artist community, to reflect that, as well as the history of not just the community, but also council itself, reflect back into the history of council over the last 200 years. So
Murray.
Well, I guess I got out of the bed on the wrong side this morning. Because I think if we talk about money that we're spending here, over $1 million to move our council chambers to another building, I feel it's kind of unfortunate that we haven't, I've been here for 2 years and I've heard about this, but it's the first time I've ever seen a drawing on it. And there are alternatives, there were, that we could have, it's more efficient to have the council chamber in the building where you have your staff. Otherwise, you got to drag them over there. To me, this is a boondoggle. Why are we creating a lobby, a 12 by 12 lobby at the, what's that for? Like, I got a dozen questions. I couldn't support this right now. I'd put it on hold. I think we need to examine it carefully, and it maybe has gone too far. I don't know, but it certainly didn't go far. It went past councillors, as far as I know, because did anybody else know this was going on to this degree? Well, then you should have shared it.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, I think we did approve this to go into the budget when we were going through the budget process. part of the reason we approved it is because the way the finances were going to work, it wasn't going to affect 2025 because if there was any money that was really it was coming from reserves, or if any money ended up having to be borrowed or whatever, it would only really affect the next year. I guess from my perspective, now seeing it, I'm concerned about the costs, and I don't know what the breakdown of the cost is. I don't know what the cost is for this building versus the building across the street. I'm a little concerned when, we're told that the RFP would come to council to be approved, but we're already going out to the various vendors and so on, and getting all the pricing as I'm understanding it here today. So I think the situation is that, I don't want to be going out to the vendors and getting all the detailed pricing if we're not going to approve it. I think we need to be talking a little bit more in general of what the costs are. And I agree with Councillor Ferry here that I am very concerned about, what we're spending on this. So.
Here.
So with respect to the comments made, and they're well taken. However, the aspect of, granted, with specifics, we're primarily with this building, weren't discussed in that detail with council. However, the concept of moving the council chambers to the land division building was always discussed. That was the primary focus. So that part of it is there. The internal part of it as to how many offices there are, where the office is going. Yeah, I grant that. With respect to the amount of money being spent, it's the amount of money that was discussed at the budget process is what we, based on the initial conversations with the design consultant we had, reflected. It reflects, those costs include the new HVAC system is on the other building, the mold remediation in the building, the accessibility components that have to take place in this building anyways are all part of that discussion. And that piece was discussed at the budget time. What wasn't discussed, and in fairness, and I agree, we didn't talk about the specifics of the look, if you will, or who went where, but the grand components that made up the price were discussed. With respect to where we're at now, this is, unless the project is going to be canceled, we have to do this work to get to the point where this is actually what we're going to pay for the building, right? The work's being done, which is, because we're to the point now is what's it going to cost to renovate this space into usable office spaces, renovate the downstairs into the office space as well. And with respect to the design of the council chambers, it's just reflective of the use of the space. The lobby's put in place. We hold council receptions here now, and we have people standing in amongst the desks of the council pieces like that. So it was designed to accommodate the public with respect to interaction with the council, the various functions we have. Created a larger gallery space to accommodate more members of the public at council meetings, and better seating for both staff and council in areas. So all those considerations were put in place, but I would just like to go back to, and I'd say this with all due respect, is that going into the budget and going into that, we were very clear with respect to what the money was being spent on, not to the minutia of number of offices, desks, windows, that sort of thing, but the HVAC system, but the remote remediation, the accessibility pieces, and the moving of the council chambers across the street.
Jennifer?
Just because we haven't had enough controversy yet this morning, I would like to ask a question about the potential for the county amalgamating in the next number of years. The jury is still out. There are still a lot of people in favor. There are a lot of people against, but that decision hasn't been reached. It may be reached in the next 10 years. Would the layout be sufficient for a potentially amalgamated council? Because I'm seeing 9 chairs.
In the hypothetical situation, yes. I mean, it would accommodate that piece. The expansion of this building would create the opportunity for more people here if needed on the ground floor. But that wasn't part of the conversation. But it's a modern space that can, I'm assuming if it accommodate this, it can accommodate different iterations. But that wasn't a consideration as we were putting this together.
Councillor Ferry?
I agree that it was in the budget process that we did know we were going to spend $1 million. I assume it was $1 million over there and 600,000 here. But if we'd had a sketch of this for council to consider, my druthers would have been to sell the registry office, put the second story on where we're putting it downstairs, and we'd have had everything in one building. You can move that wall, make this room way bigger if you need more public. But there was no opportunity to talk about it. So, I mean, maybe it's gone too far, but it'll never come in at that budget. I can tell you that. When you start playing around in an old building, renovating, and for what? For 3 days, a month, or whatever. It's nice to have, but I don't know if it's not a luxury.
Have Councillor Ryle, Councillor Carter, and Councillor McCrackney. Councillor Ryle?
Yeah, I in the case of what's going on, I totally agree that this facility, as it sits right now, ain't doing the job. It just ain't doing it. And no matter what we do, we cannot bless it, sanctify it, or make anything else that's going to make it work. So there needs to be something done. And I'm looking at what has been presented, and I see it as being, you know, I guess it's complicated. It's awfully, you know, and it's expensive. But what I would like to see is there a way we could walk through the rationale for why the layout is as it is right now, so we can see the benefits of why we're spending $1.6 million. I don't want to argue about it. I really want to get explained to me when I go and tell people we're spending 1.6 million, that the rationale for why we did what we did makes sense. Then we can obviously get into colors and get into great, wonderful things. The second question that I was going to ask is, and I know Councillor Carter brought it up as a brief statement, is there an opportunity here to use the council chambers as a joint opportunity, whereby we could use that council chamber for two different facilities, one as at the county, and the other one possibly also letting it to be used by Minden Hills. To me, that makes the whole thing much more economically viable, and I think having it in another building would probably be better than. I'm just saying.
Gary?
Yeah, so just on that part, the actual use of the facility in that regard, yes, absolutely. I mean, that could be something to accommodate with respect to a shared council chambers between Minden Hills and the county. It goes back to my earlier comment, and beyond that, with the changes being made and the considerations given with respect to what's happening on the lower floor, is that there's other opportunity for more community use spaces as well, just beyond just the two municipalities that it bring in place. So that is
I'll be with you in a second. Councillor Carter?
Yeah, I think if I take what Councillor Ferry is saying, you know, I'm pretty certain that we're not talking about the color of the curtains here. You know, it's not minutia. This is, you know, the general overall costs for doing what is presented here. I don't have the transparency in front of me to say that this building is going to cost X and the renovations on the other building are Y, because you know, the renovations for this building, I mean, this building is the county building, and we're going to continue to use it as that. So you know, for all sorts of reasons, it needs to be upgraded. So, you know, that's understandable. I think across the street is more of an optional thing. There could be some other solutions that are viable. And, you know, for me, I would like to get an overall breakdown of what those costs are. Because, you know, quite frankly, you know, there are a lot of unanswered questions here, and you don't want to try to project what's going to happen over the next 10 years. But You know, one of the things we talk about is that we have to work better together across the communities and so on. And so, that may, a number of the different areas that we've talked about as initiatives, whether it be in planning, whether it be in roads, whether it be, wherever, do we have too many offices now? Or too few offices if we bring those groups together in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's a consideration. The consideration of amalgamation, again, not saying for or against it, but it would seem to me that if there was an amalgamated county, it probably wouldn't have 8 councillors. It may be something different. So the idea of, that the round table or the semicircular table with 9 seats may need to be 11 seats or 12 or whatever it may be. So and again, we can't answer all those questions, but before I would approve the project, would like to see at least more general idea of what the total costs are and what some of the alternatives might be.
Again, with respect, you use the word transparency, and I need to address that because this process was transparent. When the budget, and I understand, Councillor, I think it's important to say, because when the general numbers were brought to council part of the budget process, there was a breakdown between the 2 buildings, what the costs were going to be for this building and the cost would be for the other building. Again, but by all means, we're getting a little more refined as we move forward. We can provide the information and bring it back to council with respect to this, and to Councillor Ryle's point, the logic behind what was done. And I think it's important. Yes, there are all kinds of alternatives that we could look at. But from a cost factor, the one thing that was always the most attractive of this, and even was shared by our consultant to us, we're not doing any actual structural construction in this piece. From a cost perspective, we're not removing walls, we're not adding floors, we're not expanding footprints, which is fine. I mean, I know you can look at options, but having said that, we were following the direction that would be the council chambers, right? And then going backward from there, but we can definitely bring that information forward with respect to, yes, this is where this space is going to cost this much money. Yes, it was given at a very high level when the budget came forward, and then we'll break it down, and we'll even go further to break it down into, this is what the AODA component is. This is what the cost of the land registry office is if we do nothing, because we still have to spend money over to do nothing. The roof's an issue. The HVAC system is well, the building HVAC system for a house for commercial building, and the mold. So that's all part. So and also the primary accessibility features that we have to do to this building anyways are in those numbers as well. So we'll break it out as to the do nothing costs aren't zero. So this is what the do nothing costs are, and this is what the various, we can break that up and return it to council next meeting.
Okay, Councillor McKechnie.
Yeah, so do you have a figure for what the consulting fees are right now?
I don't have it offhand, but I do have a cost for the consulting fees. Yeah.
Okay. And I understand that the lift is, outdated, and definitely we need some washrooms that are accessible, and maybe a couple more offices down the road. I'm on the other side of the fence 100% in regard to assuming that there's going to be an amalgamation. I have a lot of friends in the Kawartha Lakes area, and I could give you a lot of facts, but I'm not going to bore you with them right now, because probably most of you don't want to listen to them. But it doesn't work. And I know that I was involved in a very important thing in our community in Dysart about 10 years ago, where we were debating tearing down the arena. And the structural engineers said, don't tear it down, guys. We can spend some money here and fix it. We spent 1.4 million, and we got our arena's in pretty darn good shape right now. We've had 10 good years, and hopefully we'll have another 10 good years. So I think in these times, the days we're in right now, we were talking earlier about saving a few bucks. We're talking $1.6 million plus, like Murray says. It's not gonna be budget. That won't be the finished product. So I think this thing has to be really, really looked at in a wide open, open eye, exploring all the costs that are in front of us, and do we really need it? That's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Dayo.
Thanks very much. And indeed, I find anytime blueprints to a project finally land on a table, a whole bunch of new questions pop up and things are refreshed in the mind and it all, the blueprint moment is a big moment for the brain. And I think that's where we are. Having said that, in support of the CAO, this is a repeat of the conversation we had at budget time where we did give direction to keep going on a 2 building approach. And I remember, because I was one of the ones who raised my hand and said, I don't think we should be proceeding with this. I think we should be holding off. And then we received a fulsome response from staff saying, these costs are going to continue to increase and increase and increase. All of this was presented at budget time, and we did make the decision to proceed on this basis. So I'm concerned that we are now pulling the rug out from under staff who are doing what we've asked them to do. I believe that what happens underneath council chambers, who gets an office where, how many, it is an operational decision. So I don't think that's something that would necessarily come back to council. I think council chambers is a little bit different because that is where we exist and where we represent the community. But beyond that, this is operational, and we have given that direction already. So if we want to review that decision, it would be a question of asking, what is the process for rescinding a decision that we've already made? And I'm not in support of it because I was convinced by the detailed answer we received from staff at budget time on these very questions.
Councillor Danielson.
What Councillor Dayu said. No, the points that I wanted to make is that we're hearing that there's definitely work that must be done. As far as HVAC and mold and accessibility, and I expect that a lot of the cost is associated with that. I see, the desire for a breakdown once again, just to sort of see, where the money is being focused on. I'm really concerned. We just had a discussion about let's buy that extra piece of equipment now because it's going to cost more later. That will be the case because I know that there is work that we absolutely must do. We're running out of space. That it's just going to cost more if we wait. I do want to say that I did not see drawings and any information that I had about this work being done was brought to council. I mean, basically we had agreed that we were going to move across the street for accessibility purposes. I mean, for folks like yourself and myself, you can walk straight into the building to get into the council chambers, and as can the public. And I just wanted to reiterate that I did not see the drawings, but I guess I'd have 1 or 2 questions, specific questions about what we're seeing today. But overall, I agree with Councillor Dayu that it's a lot of the decisions are operational with in nature.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Look, I don't think anybody is saying that we haven't talked about this before. That's not the point. When this came up at budget, there was concerns raised by a number of councillors, but we were at that time talking about a general idea and a general number, and we knew that it wasn't going to affect our 2025 budget. So that's fine. If our Director of Public Works had come to us this morning and said, oh, by the way, that truck that you said we were going to buy for 400,000 is now 700,000. We may have changed our mind about proceeding. And so I think that's where we're at. We're now getting the numbers that are associated with this as you say, the blueprint stage of, this finalized design and so on. And when I talk about transparency, I'm not suggesting that you're not being transparent. I'm just suggesting that when I look at this page with the blueprints, I don't have the complete report of this is going to cost us what and so on. Look, it may be that we have to, the adding the council chambers over there is really going to be, paint and curtains because most of the other work has to be done for other reasons. I just don't have a feel for that. So if I'm going to be approving an RFP that for over $1 million here, I want to know exactly what I'm getting and, what it's for. I personally, at this point in time, I'm very concerned that, this is more than we can afford. And yes, the council chambers should be such that it is welcoming and the gravitas of the whole process in the building is commensurate with a county council and all of that. But if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. I mean, if we had to have meetings in a tent that we pitched, that would be, if that was the best way to go forward, that's what we would need to be doing. So I'm just saying now we're getting the point where, okay, here's the whole project. This is what's cost. This is what you're getting. And that's what we have to review. I'm only talking about what I think as a council we should be reviewing, not suggesting that, I don't care about who's got the size of an office or whatever, how many offices are going to be for whatever department. Yeah, all operational things. But that top line, that big number, that's where we get involved. And that's what I want to make sure that we can afford.
Gary and Murray.
So, just to that point, so the number you have was the budget approved number. Fair enough. I know, I just look for clarity. So we're not bringing a new number in. Sil's worked, and I give Sil a lot of credit. He's worked really hard as a consultant, making sure we've already made changes to reflect that piece going forward. By all means, yes, absolutely. We can provide the detailed breakdown you're requesting as to what costs have to be spent no matter what we do, whether we do nothing, what costs are associated with in the new building would be for accessibility, and then and goes back to the part with the FF&E, the finishing furnishing equipment conversation the other day. We've given directions to the consultant saying, this is what we can afford. Don't bring us something that's going to be this. This is what we can afford. We can bring that information back to council. I think it's also important to reiterate, we weren't asking council to approve anything today, right? So we weren't saying, if you would have said yes, we were going to just run out and cut ribbons. No, this is just okay. I think to the point was, and I will say, and with apologies to council, the length of time it took to come with these drawings, it took this long to get them done. Right. And not the consultant's fault. I mean, because we were making changes because of costing, because of things we had to do in other areas. Just small things like we originally thought we were going to be able to use the basement in the building, and that turned out to be not an affordable fact, but stuff like that. But we can bring all that forward. And as we move on, and then to Councillor Carter's point, when we don't know what the next set of numbers is going to be until we actually go out. Going forward, and that's when all that comes back to council again with either recommendations from us to modify or do whatever, or we receive the same type of information back from council. But yeah, we can most definitely provide that breakdown to council.
Murray.
I want to say that I'm not attacking staff over this. It came to the budget meeting, and the budget was, we're going to borrow, to do this project, we're going to borrow $1 million for the registry office and 500,000 or something for the addition here. That's what I remember. But anyway, if I'm reading this wrong, there is a new addition going on the basement floor here, is there not? 12 by 30. When I look at these plans.
I don't think the addition, I know that sorry.
Well,
It's not an addition. I believe it's the work being done to put the lift in. Am I correct on that, Sil?
Sorry, which building? This building here?
No, and the basement floor, there's an addition on this sketch 12 by 30 outside
Of this building.
of this building.
No,
Of the
there,
basement.
there's
No,
no
there's
addition
no
to any
additions.
buildings.
Well,
Everything's interior.
Yeah,
so it's all
within.
marked up wrong on our drawing then.
No, those drawings are accurate. There's,
Well, it shows a new wall there.
oh, sorry, that's interior. So if we're, yeah, we're downstairs where Sill's office is now. So those are all partition walls. They're not structural walls in the building. They're all partition walls. And so to accommodate, it was an open space and it was put back into offices. We're removing the partition wall or moving a partition wall and turning it into meeting space versus office space. So there's no, when I say structural work, we're not adding steel beams, we're not pulling down load-bearing walls. It's straight partition walls that if you took this space and divided it in two, it'd be a simple partition wall that you take out. It's not structural, right? That's what I
Certainly
mean.
The drawings don't show that.
Well, no, these are reflective of what the final product is. So, but I can guarantee you there is no, the buildings aren't getting bigger from a footprint step. They're not
Okay,
getting bigger.
And another question, the town hall, what's that? What's that for? Is that a public meeting room or?
It's just, the consultant called it a town hall. It's a meeting room,
See-
which can be used for external agencies or
See,
public.
I take a
meetings.
much different approach for our community about this. And I'm thinking about Minden now for a change. You know what, why would we make space available for a public meeting when they've got a $12 million arena and all kinds of space available in Minden? Like, we're taking away from the township here.
Well, if I might,
Go ahead.
so it wasn't, it was just, that's just an option. What we have now, even for the county, right? Some of the stuff we do, we don't have meeting space, right? To do just the meetings we have for what we do here. And so they put it town hall because when we were having the discussion, I think it might have been my comment was, well, if we have a space of that size, should somebody need it for one of the associations or whatever, we could make it available. I'm not saying we'd had to, but we could make it available for that type of use. So it was just more of a flexibility thing than anything else, but that's more designed for the work we do.
Well, just for experience, we did that in the Desert Library. We put in a meeting room and it probably doesn't get used 2 times a month. And everybody knows about it. It's a nice space. So, you know, you gotta heat these places and you gotta look after them. Clean them.
Councillor Rao.
I'm not sure where we're going here, but I know where I want to go, so I'm gonna put out what I want to see. First off, I think that based on what our staff was given, you've done what we've asked you to do. You've gone, you've looked at some options. You've obviously looked at and possibly give us a little bit more detail, the cost of doing something and the cost of not doing it. Because if we don't do something, we're gonna have costs anyway, and you've made that crystal clear. And I think we can get those numbers from you. It's not that difficult to get. And at the end of the day, the only thing that I wanted to know was if we're going to be looking at spending 1.6, I have no problem spending 1.6 if it's being spent properly. Zero problem at all. So the question now is, what is the value in what we're doing? I have no interest in telling you where you should put an office. But when you give me a drawing, I'd like to know what is that space for? And based on what we know now, I'm sure you have an answer. I just never had the opportunity to either ask the question or hear the answer. And I would be more interested in understanding the overall rationale for why the particular layout as we see it has been presented. So that when we go back to the public and say, hey, we're spending $1.6 million, this is why we're spending it. Here's the value that we're going to get from it. And at the end of the day, I support it or support it modified with these changes. And so the other thing that might help, considering I've never been across the street, is I've never seen what we're going to do over there. Possibly a walkthrough, what might be of value, especially to someone like myself, where I can look at the print or whatever we get and kind of walk through whatever's available in the building and say, okay, now I can kind of visualize that. Why am I saying that? Because my daughter's building a house in Napanee. We got the drawings. Now the shell's up. Holy crap. The shell that we're seeing is a whole lot different than the drawing that was on paper. And so in this case, we have the advantage of being able to see the facility, even though it's in drawings, to be able to rationalize sizes and stuff. I think we need to just listen more to what you have to say and why you did what you did and what you plan on doing. I don't have enough information from that, but I know you have it and I'd like to hear it.
So, yeah, and similar to the comments I made to Councilor Carter, it's point well taken. And I apologize for that to council. I was focused on with council. I was just focused on the council chambers part of it, not the interior part. Yeah, so what we'll do for the next council meeting, if that's agreeable, because we have all the information, right? And we spent a lot of time on planning out where, and I have no concern where you guys knowing what our plans are. Obviously, and we can walk you through that at the next council meeting. We'll have the breakdown by category, by financial category, and we can walk you through the each floor, as well as to Councillor Fury's place, what the vision was for the council chambers and why it is laid out the way it is. Because you walk in there now, it's a big rectangle. It's a big empty rectangle. And for those that want to go over, we can obviously we'll get it open up. It's very cold and smelly in there, but we'll we'll take you through a tour of what the space is and kind of show you where it is, what's going to happen as we go forward. Thanks.
Murray?
Last time I'll speak on this. All I'm saying is we're not in a panic because if we go ahead right now, we're going to encounter the highest building costs that have ever been in Canada. So if we wait a few months, we might save $1 or $2.
Yeah, and just I mean, and as Mr. Cloutier's timing is, we're not looking to go out Monday. We have another month and a half worth of stuff to go through before that would happen.
I would like to ask for the resolution, Gary, if you would.
That report PW 0325 Land Registry Office Administration Buildings Renovation Project B received for information.
Could I have someone move? Councillor Carter? Councillor Shell? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Yep. We are going to take a quick break, council. I am, with council's indulgence, I'm going to switch off the agenda over to closed session. Everybody's all right with that, and I would like someone to move to go into closed session. Councillor Danielson, Councillor Perry.
That council move into closed session under section 239 of the municipal act.
Welcome to, welcome to Sheila Zyman and Paul Haven, and thank you for taking time to come in and give us an update.
Thank you.
Have a few rules.
Yeah, thank you, Warden Moore. Just for everybody's information, what's happening today is, so council has requested that the representatives from the land trust come back and answer some questions with respect to the information that's been shared online, and as generates some concerns in the public. Council may have some questions of the land trust going forward. We won't be entering into a long debate on the process today. What council has directed us to do at staff level is we're bringing this matter back to council on the 26th of March, where staff will have a report that will go to council that will include all the commentary and concerns that were raised in the public that either have been submitted to council or we've seen on social media or have been directed straight to staff. As well as the information provided at Land Trust, and staff is also working with the province with respect to more procedural matters as to what the procedure is for it into the point is how is, if this goes forward, what the management of is of that point. And I'm anticipating that council will make their decision on it on the 27th or after the 26th, excuse me, of March after that. So
Thanks, Gary. Go ahead.
So I believe I was asked to address the open letter and sort of work through that. Is that the best approach for everyone then to go? Okay, very good. So I guess beginning, the Highlands corridor again, it stretches from Queen Elizabeth over to Silent Lake, and it was an area that we identified as being important ecologically over from our 18 years of research now. And within that area, we were looking for opportunities for conservation. That was our strategy. We recognize this as an important area. Where can we look for opportunities for conservation? And through that process, we have identified an area that is the gem of the gem. Really, it's very high ecological value. It's got lots of wetlands and species at risk, and things that we certainly feel are important for both our own wildlife habitats and maintaining climate change resilience and our diversity. For protection of the area, we have always opted for conservation reserve. And the reason we have pushed that level of protection is because it recognizes the value of recreation in that level of protection. And so unlike provincial parks where hunting and trail use are prohibited, in a conservation reserve, they are allowed. In fact, that's in the 1990s. That's why they were developed as an option for protection, to recognize that and protect that. And so even though as an ecological environmental group, a provincial park best fits our needs, we have never even put that on the table. We've always looked just at conservation reserve to accommodate and recognize the value of that in our local community. So moving forward, we started, we sort of homed in on this one area that seemed like an excellent, very, very high ecological value. And we actually participated in Bancroft Minden Forest Company's own gap analysis. So again, reiterating that piece, the Bancroft Minden Forest Company has the logging rights for the entire Crown land within our area. As in order to maintain the sustainable forest license, they have to identify areas of high conservation value through a gap analysis, and then make sure that those are protected in order to keep their license. And so to do that, they held a stakeholders meeting, and back in 2023, within which we participated, and started those discussions. Like, we see this is a big area of ecological value. What do you think about this? And it was a back and forth and lots of discussion around that. And in the end, once we presented our information and they looked at their own planning, they agreed that the ecological value in what we're calling as the Milburn-Kendrick area outweighed the forestry value, and help them actually meet their sustainable forest license and maintain that as part of their own process. And so they've endorsed that project through that. With recognizing again the value of hunting and trail use in the community, we back in 2022, when we even first started this, we immediately approached the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters and invited them to participate in our advisory committee. And since that date, Matthew Robbins, who's a wildlife biologist with OFA, has been part of our advisory committee as well, and supports our conservation efforts. Again, because what we're proposing protects the natural assets that are so important to Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, and still allows their use of that area. In terms of, I've spoken to logging, what a conservation reserve does do is remove the sort of the broad impacts of mining, aggregates, and logging. And so for the area that we've identified, the Milburn Kendrick, that is what we're seeking, because it does remove those three things from that. And again, it is what we see in terms of Haliburton County, the highest concentration of ecological value in terms of wetlands and species at risk. And so that's why we prioritize that site. Throughout the rest of,
Sorry, I just interject, because you were talking about the support we have from the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. And I just also wanted to mention that we also have the support, or that we've initiated a discussion with members of the Ontario Trails Protection Alliance, and that's made up of associations representing all the terrain vehicles, 4x4s, ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, etc. And we've initiated that discussion so that we can we can explore opportunities to collaborate, and that we're mutually committed to continue to meet again. And we are working on a joint statement as we speak right now, and hopefully that statement will come out this afternoon or tomorrow or the next day or so. And it will be a joint statement from this association, the Ontario Trails Protection Alliance, a new name for me, and HHLT. So watch out for that joint statement. Sorry, Paul.
yeah, no worries. In regard to the rest of the, in regard to other conservation strategies throughout the Highlands corridor, that's definitely of interest to people. I don't think there's probably much more we're going to be doing with Crown Land. I think we've sort of highlighted the biggest opportunity we have right here. And in terms of private land, we're always interested in working with private landowners, and that's why we developed our Partners in Conservation program, where we can assist landowners at good stewardship and fill some of those gaps between Crown land. And so I mean, what we're looking at again is trying to enhance connectivity across our landscape. Wildlife populations are going to be stressed, biodiversity is going to be stressed. And so any way of doing that, and it'll be a toolbox of things. We've got a conservation reserve here. We have good private land stewardship here. We have general crown land use over here. That all fits together in the toolbox and helps enhance that connectivity. And so that's what we've been looking for.
And I just want to stress that private land remains private, and that the landowner of a private piece of property is the only one that decides on the land use and the stewardship of that land, respectful of any municipal regulations or provincial regulations. But private land remains private, and we don't have any control over private land. It's a voluntary program that we have, the Partners in Conservation. Those are people who are practicing good stewardship activities and support our efforts at conservation.
The Public Lands Act states that that for any new trails on Crown land, a permit is required. That's very similar and the same as Conservation Reserve. Similarly, existing trails are allowed to be used for both Conservation Reserve and Crown land. I know there's been some controversy.
Four-wheelers and third licenses?
I won't be taking any questions or comments from the gallery, please.
I know there was some concern over Queen Elizabeth II Provincial Park where trails were closed. That is a provincial park. That's not a conservation reserve. That's not what we were advocating for. I guess at this point, Sheila, do you have anything to add? I think we'll open it questions or comments.
Yeah, if there's anything you need further clarification on.
All right, and we'll open council up to some questions if you would like. Go ahead. I do have a couple that I'll certainly bring forward. All right, I just, I guess with one of the concerns I do have, and it'll probably come out at our next meeting, and is, you use the word existing trails. We just spent a lot of money out in Highlands East with I'm gonna call it a master plan for trails, and you didn't really talk about new that I saw in there.
So even on Crown land right now, again, new trails require a permit, and that would be the same with the Conservation Reserve. What we have done is in our consultation with Ontario Trails Preservation Alliance, we're anticipating being able to share data. So we sort of we didn't sort of, I sent the trails that we've identified in the Conservation Reserve area and asked them for comment and input. And so they'll be sending back data on what trails that they see as important in that area as well. And we'll integrate that into our plan moving forward. I think another good area for us to collaborate on with the Trail Association and through initial consultation, this seems like a win-win for both of us, is we recognize that trails do get sometimes need to be moved, whether that's as a result of use or as a result of climate change impacts. And in that case, we hope to be able to collaborate with them and actually look at different areas and help them do that. As we've got the ecological sensitive data, they've got their interests on where trails need to go, and that we both see that as a good fit and a mutual partnership in being able to do that.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Mr. Mayor, could I just have a clarification? The trails that you built in Highlands East, was that on municipal land or Crown land?
Well, it probably will be both. I haven't brought the plan to council yet.
Yeah, so I imagine if it was Crown land, you got a permit to do that, and that would be perfectly acceptable and would count as an existing trail.
I also think too, it's really important to remember that the scope of what we're proposing for this conservation reserve is just the Millburn-Kendrick, which is that area. Other than that, the Crown land stays the same as general use.
Cease?
Yeah, I don't, the whole idea of current and existing. Can you guys speak up a little bit? Okay, I can try to do that if I can. In most of what I've read and most of what I've heard, you're using the words existing and current. And you asked a very good question, is do we have a permit for what we're planning? The truth of the matter is we don't know what we've got set up yet because we have not had a chance to go through a lot of what we have already to determine where it makes more sense. So we will be collaborating with the various associations also to determine whether or not an additional trail would make sense to go through this particular area to join these two and so on and so forth. So if you were to ask me today, where are they? I got to tell you, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because that plan, as Warden Burton said, has yet to be released. Okay, so now comes the question of, you asked if we had a permit. So we don't have a permit for that. So now we come up with the question of, if we want to go forward and you've put everything you want to do in place, as you see it, what do we have to go through? Are we going to need environmental studies? What are we going to do? Because if that's the case, that is going to make it almost impossible by the point of cost and time for us to accomplish anything. And so at the end of the day, it has to be more simplified. It has to be in such a way that we're not being put into a place that we just physically cannot come out of. And the other thing that we have, and that's just the trails piece, is, as you know, we're trying to look at affordable and attainable housing, which is a completely different argument, but the same thought pattern. And in our neck of the woods, which is Highlands East, and by the way, just so you know, I don't think any of Highlands East is not covered in what you're talking about. I think 100% of Highlands East is going to be included in this corridor. So whatever you apply to one is going to apply to all of it. Let me finish and then you can rebut. So at the end of the day, if we're going to be using that as a corridor designation, okay, what is the difference between that and identifying individual pockets where more EP type scenarios would be? Because that's the part that I'm concerned about, is we got this carte blanche blanket that's going to end up over the entire Highlands East, and then we're going to end up with bureaucracy that we cannot possibly deal with, and timelines that are going to make it impossible for anybody to do anything. Having said that, we also want to respect the natural heritage that we have. I don't think anybody anywhere wants to see any kind of pollution, any kind of damage that would stop us to do the things we like to do. Fish, enjoy the outdoor nature, just walk, ski, do whatever we got to do. But my concern is, and has been, and what I'm hearing from the people that I represent, is that there is a serious concern that that is going to be compromised significantly and or made almost impossible based on new regulations that are coming in. So we need to make sure at the end of the day, where do you guys stand on that? Because the government will do what the government does. You're advocates at the moment. So if you're looking at something that would turn us from the municipality of Highlands East to the Highlands East Conservation Authority, That is not something that we want.
So very, very important that we get this clear. The only area that we've actually proposed any change in Crown land use is the Milburn Kendrick. That's it. There's no carte blanche. There's no overall protective anything. There's no mechanism for that. The only thing we're doing is proposing the Milburn Kendrick area be designated as a conservation reserve. That's it. So in terms of, that's not, so there's no, so there is no.
I'm not taking any comments
Why are we here then? Why can't we comment on it? Like,
because we're setting up for a meeting next month that you'll have your time to comment, not today. Go ahead, Paul, sorry.
So there is no, so there's no other mechanism for protection of Crown land in that area, other than just it stays the same as general use area. Where we change it to conservation reserve in terms of trail building and everything else, that remains the same. That the mechanisms for that process is permit required, and here's what you need to do. So there isn't any change that way either. There is a heightened level of protection in terms of the conservation reserve piece, which is the Milburn, in terms of mining, logging, and aggregates.
So, and maybe just to clarify, I think there's a misunderstanding in that the Highlands corridor is really just a concept. There's no legally binding framework for any of it. The core other than what is existing now on Crown land. It's a concept. It's an effort to protect an important wildlife corridor. So for example, Paul was saying the conservation reserve that we're looking at is the Milburn Kendrick. It's about 15% of the Crown land that exists now. So the Bancroft Minden Forestry Company has agreed that there's no value really there in forestry, and that it has high conservation value, so they have signed off of it. They've taken it out of their management plan. However, that's 15% of the Crown land. The other 85% of the Crown land will be continued. Bancroft Minden Forest Company has the right to log it, and they will continue to log it. We're not dealing with the other part, with the other 85%. Does that clarify a little bit?
The Highlands corridor was an area of interest. What opportunities within this area can we look at for protection? One of them we found was the Milburn Kendrick. That's it.
Murray?
Okay, I have a lot of questions, but just one or two that I'd like an answer to today. What is the conservation reserve designation? What's that going to do that isn't being done now?
So it removes mining, aggregates, and forestry.
Okay, now who's going to manage that?
So that's MECP, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks.
Okay, I'm not sure I got the answer there, but anyway.
Yeah, the
And-
land trust does not own that or manage it. It's managed by government, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
And there's a process to that, right? I mean, they don't just create conservation reserves. Once the process kicks in, if they are interested in doing it, then there's a huge public consultation piece. Everybody gets to weigh in. Then they redefine boundaries or decide not to go forward with it. I mean, this is not that the process still has to happen for sure.
Don't allow trapping or don't mention trapping. Is that allowed?
That is allowed.
Trapping is allowed.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It's-
say that. Okay.
Yeah, double check the regulations.
Liz?
Speaking to the regulation, right? It's not clear. You know, I mean, it's government speak. And in some cases, it's not clear where, I mean, I think there's one place where it says that an ATV may haul a carcass out of an area, but it doesn't say you can hunt. It doesn't say you can use ATVs. And I've got to say, you've done a really good job in the last couple of days of providing clarification based on a lot of the miscommunication that's been out there. But it is indicative of maybe not the best communication that's been in place in the past. So I'm really glad to see some of the information that's come out. Just to be absolutely clear, hunting and fishing are allowed.
Yes.
And do you see any, going into the future, any reduction in the use of motorized vehicles based on the partnership that you talked about with the trails?
No, we're working collaboratively to protect those trails.
That's, so this meeting on Monday was very productive. And that is, I have to say, we did fumble on that a little bit. We should have reached out to the trail community earlier. Oh, sorry. That's great. I think that is definitely probably one of the areas we did fumble in for sure. We should have reached out to the trail community earlier. We did thinking Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters and thinking, okay, it doesn't affect trails. It wasn't sort of our target community or target group to reach out to. But anyway, our meeting on Monday was very productive. We do see very valuable opportunity to move forward with it in terms of a partnership and collaboration with the trail. Ontario Trail Preservation Alliance Group, which is a consortium of trail user organizations.
I did have a question about, well, I think one of my questions was similar to yours, Warden Burton, about the expansion of trails or new trails. That, you know, that obviously those things will come forward and we would hope to see them, you know, be successful. I should maybe know the answer to this, but what portion of the rail trail is included in the?
None.
Yeah.
None.
Okay. That's good. That's all for me for now.
Good, council. Any other questions? Councilor Rao.
Yeah, so you again, twice in that statement you made, you use the word almost existing, which is again, this is the part that's scaring just about everybody. Is that at the end of the day, we don't know what we're going to need until we actually start using it. We have one of the largest growing populations, not necessarily in Highlands East by itself, but in Haliburton County, we're one of the largest growing areas. That's creating problems for housing, but it's also creating problems for recreation on a part of people who want to be able to go outside and enjoy what we need to do. And so that is going to expand. There's no ands, buts, or maybes about it. It's going to expand. You've been dealing with great people because we'll be dealing with them too. But for the most part, as Warden Burton said, each of our municipalities has got master trail programs. And so at the end of the day, who's talking to us? Nobody. And so this is the part that I need to make clear, is that there's more than just the average person that you've been speaking to that are involved here. Every municipality that's inside of this, and obviously Highlands East to the greatest extent, needs to know what is being planned in more than just broad terms. We need to know specifically what the restrictions are going to be, some of which we will solidly support, no ands, buts, or maybes about that. Other ones, we may have to look at how we can compromise to a point where it doesn't hold back everything we're capable of doing, which means our populations cannot do it either. Am I clear in what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so.
This has got nothing to do with the bureaucracy of how it's going to work. It's got to do with the ability to communicate so that I don't think there's a person in this room that does not want to protect our environment or the wildlife that's in it. Because that's the reason why we're there. You can't hunt if there's nothing there to hunt. You can't fish if there's nothing there to catch. Okay, and if the waters become polluted or they just get deteriorated, nothing's going to happen. So what I'm trying to get is when you're doing your advocacy, and I'm not talking about the regulations between the government and whoever else we are. I'm talking about your position as you're publishing it to the public, why we should support you. You need to give us more information on how you're going to work with us to make sure that that compromise is as minimum as possible. Because then we can sit down with the people and explain to them, this is important for us to do in order to make sure you can continue hunting. You can continue finishing. We can continue expanding our housing stock. I'm not getting that.
Councilor Carter?
How can I?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Just to say, I would like to do that. How? Like we have an advisory committee. We invited the Township of Minden Hills and the Highlands East to participate in that. I'd be keen to, meet and express or go over everything in finest detail. What's the process? How do we do that?
Wait,
Well,
I just want to, not put words in your mouth, but I want you to say so we can get this totally clear because words matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think what you have said is that in terms of the trails and what Councillor Rael has been bringing up, that right now, if you were to want to expand your trail network across Crown land, there is a process to do that. You have to go to the Crown to get permission. What you are doing does not change that in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
Okay, the process that one would go through has nothing to do with what you're putting on the table today. Okay,
Exactly.
the process is the same as it's always been. So I think we have to separate, what it is that you are asking for separated in terms of you're asking for it for a limited geographical area that has been well defined. And you are not doing anything different than what has happened in the past. I mean, if you had to go to the Crown before, you still have to go to the Crown. What you are proposing has nothing, changes nothing regarding that. Is that correct?
That is
Exactly correct.
precisely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Liz?
Sorry, I might be speaking out of turn. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you coming back, speaking in public so that members of the public can hear and get the clarification that they need. We've got more questions and I'm sure that, as our CAO has said, we will have another meeting in March. But I'm just glad to see you here today.
She's,
I'd like to echo that. As you can tell, I'm passionate, the people I represent are passionate. And so sometimes when we are passionate, we may say things that it may not come out the way we intended them to. What I'm hoping you're reading is the intent of what we're asking for, not necessarily the tone in which it's being asked. Fair enough? First off, thank you very much for coming here. Thank you for submitting to an interrogation, more or less. But we're looking forward to seeing where this takes us and where we can go. Fair enough?
Yeah, and know that we are always open to doing that, always open and would, welcome it.
well, we will certainly have, Bob?
The one thing that was left hanging there was when you asked how you managed to talk to the people of Highlands East and Minden. We've already set up a meeting and we've agreed to do that.
Yes.
So that process is going to be happening because I think our two townships are the ones that are the most, affected by all this. And so we will be meeting with you and basically taking the message that we're getting from our constituents to make sure that we can resolve all these matters and have it in an open way.
And again, I just wanted to thank you for coming in. We will look forward to having you back in March, I believe we said. And at that time, I will entertain probably some questions from the public as well. We have a resolution, Gary?
Yes, Your Honor, that the matter of the Haliburton Highlands Land Trust be referred to the March 26th County Council meeting and staff be directed to prepare a detailed report, including information received from Highlands Haliburton Land Trust, members of the public, and the Ministers of Natural Resources, Forestry, Environment, and Conservation Parks for Councilors' information and consideration.
If someone move, Councillor Carter, Councillor Ryle. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We'll take a 10-minute break. Probably should be there. Economic Development Asset Transfer Policy. Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, members of council. So in front of you today is just a report that's more a matter of housekeeping. As part of the process for creating a municipal services corporation, we are required to adopt an asset transfer policy. I think traditionally this policy is more applicable if you're creating a municipal services corporation for the purposes of a utility or a power utility or shared services. And I guess for the purposes of tourism, we don't have a whole lot of assets. So nonetheless, we are required to submit it to the province. So just in front of you today is that asset transfer policy for your review and hopefully approval.
Questions? Well,
So in this case, you're giving us money. Is that?
If all things go according to plan, hopefully someday we can have that conversation in maybe 8 to 18 months.
Other comments or questions? Resolution?
That Haliburton County Council received report EDT 03-2025. Asset transfer policy, municipal service corporation, and endorse the asset transfer policy as presented in Schedule A.
Someone, Councillor Carter, second by Councillor McKechnie. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Apologies for the delay. So we thought we would bring just an overall land division activity summary report to council for 2024 for council's information, just to round out the year. I know we report every other month on the activity at Land Division Committee, but the report on the agenda kind of puts it all together and just analyzes some trends that we've noticed, and just looking ahead to 2025 for the rest of the year. Adam does have a verbal presentation, so I will, if you would like to come up and present that for council, please.
Good morning, council. The report prepared for council is just a snapshot of Land Division Committee activity for 2024. And just a brief summary. In 2024, the Land Division Committee approved 53 consent applications, and the majority were in Dysart with 23, followed by Minden Hills and Highlands East, each with 11, and Algonquin Highlands with 8. And of those, 16 were for rural residential lots, and the other application type predominantly was for easements and rights of ways. Sorry, I'm just catching my breath right up the stairs. So just looking at some 5-year trends between 2020 and 2024, during the pandemic years in 2020, 2021, applications were generally 22 applications as well as 31 applications. And then in 2022, we saw a spike of 60, and we've had between 60 and 52 and 56 over the last 3 years. So we have seen an elevated number of applications, and that trend is expected to continue into 2025. And then just looking at where new lot creation has occurred, in the last 5 years, we've created a total of 78 new lots. And the vast majority of those were for rural residential lots, followed by shoreline lots. Interestingly, in 2024, we did not create any shoreline lots, and the trend has been actually on the down. In 2023, we created, I believe, 8. 22, we created 8, and then 23, we created 4, and then nothing last year. So that's just a summary of 24. And I guess I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any on the trends. And I just wanted to also indicate here that the end of Q1 in 2024, we had 10 applications that had been approved. This year, the end of Q1, we're expected to have between 12 and 15 applications. I do have 3 that came in just last week for next month. So we are looking at increased numbers of consents for 25, and I would expect that we will be in the ballpark of between probably 55 and 60 for 2025.
Questions? Resolution?
That report PLN 04/2025 Land Division Committee Activity Summary Report be received for information.
Someone move, Councillor Danielson, second by Councillor Shell. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Bylaws?
The following bylaws listed under the heading consideration of bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 4288, the medical service agreement for Dr. Bishop. Bylaw 4289, medical service agreement for Dr. Stephen Johnny. Bylaw 4290, the asset transfer policy for the corporation. Bylaw 4291, the business licensing appeals, short-term rental accommodations authority bylaw. And 4292, the authorized and enter into agreement with Winslow Bromley Motors Limited purchase of one Tandem truck.
Someone move? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yes, that's right. I'll reiterate the wording for the resolution.
Could I have someone move? Councillor Carter, second by Councillor McKechnie. All in favor? It's carried. So I suppose we're going back into our closed session.
That's correct.
Do I need a motion to go back in, or someone moved, but Councillor Carter, second by Councillor Adu. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. That bylaw 4293 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of February 12th, 2025 meeting of Haliburton County Council be considered to be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Yes, Councillor Carter and Councillor Fury.
Fair. Agreed. Sure.
That the February 12th, 2025 meeting of Haliburton County Council be adjourned at 12:30.